Good morning. Welcome to the ISE webinar. This morning, we have a very exciting morning ahead planned for you all with a great panel of employers and universities and suppliers, as well as a student and young people panel at the end. Just a bit of housekeeping from our side. There will be a Q&A. Please do post all of your questions in the Q&A tab, please. Not the chat tab, the Q&A tab, so that we can record them and ask them towards the end. I have the great pleasure of introducing our chair today, Maria, who is a resourcing business partner at Penna. Maria has a background from Unlocked, very, very interested in and passionate about social mobility. And today I'm going to hand over to Maria, who's going to chair the session for you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Emma. So yeah, welcome everyone. So I have been involved with part of the ISE EDI steering groups, and some of you may have joined us a couple of weeks ago where there was a really insightful session on making the business case for social mobility. So we heard from the Social Mobility Foundation and heard a little bit from some employers who have implemented tactics in how they improve access for people from a lower socioeconomic background. So today we're going to be exploring that a little bit more. So particularly getting some advice on good practice from universities and employers. And also we're going to hear from the people who are most impacted by this. So we've got a panel of young people who very kindly have offered to join us today to give an insight into their experience of job hunting and the world of work. So we're going to launch straight into it. So as Emma said, we're going to have some questions at the end. We're going to have the two panels first, and then we will hopefully answer all your questions. So we're going to talk to some universities and employers, first of all, on how they're driving change and some big changes that can sort of level the playing field and give you some advice on sort of small and bigger wins in terms of improving social mobility. So I'm going to ask them each to turn their cameras on and just give a really brief intro before we get stuck into some questions. So Phil, can I come to you first?
Indeed. Sorry, I just got my camera on. Apologies. Yeah, hi. Lovely to be here. Really nice to join everybody. Phil Wilson, and I work at Civil Service FastStream, and I'm head of training, assessment and curriculum, and also have responsibility around inclusion activity. Thanks so much.
Great. Sam?
Hi everyone, great to be here today. So I'm Sam Morley. I work at Nottingham Trent University in our employer engagement team with a focus on our social mobility, diversity and inclusion projects to bring together students and employers.
Great, thanks Sam. And Penny?
Hello, I'm Penny. I'm a careers consultant at UCL, and I look after a programme called Careers Extra, which provides enhanced careers support for students from underrepresented backgrounds.
Great, and finally Tallulah.
Hi everyone, I'm Tallulah Bygraves and I work at Teach First. I'm their head of selection. So we manage all the selection, screening and assessment parts of the recruitment process. And I've got a real focus on EDI and ensuring that we increase our diversity across our cohorts.
Fab. All right, well, thanks all. Thanks for joining us today. So we're going to start off kind of, at the start of the journey for students at university. So we know obviously it can be difficult for students who are looking at all the different options ahead of them in terms of employers and how to go about applying for the right roles. So Penny, I was just wondering if you could give us a bit of an insight, first of all, into what you think students, particularly from a low socioeconomic background, might need from employers to help them with that search.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a few suggestions, and you may already be doing some or maybe even all of them. One thing I think would really help is flexibility in your kind of pipeline activities, such as internships and insights. I know it works for many employers to make internships a penultimate summer thing and insights a first year thing. But the problem for students can be that if they don't have a family or school background where this stuff is known, that timeline can take them by surprise and they can miss out. So one thing is, can you open more of your opportunities to multiple year groups? Another thing, and I guess this is particularly for the larger employers, is thinking more about the routes for people who don't join your graduate schemes. Our students at UCL, they get really focused on grad schemes and they can feel quite desperate if they don't secure a place for one. Could you develop, or if you have them, publicize them more opportunities for graduates outside of graduate schemes? And can you make sure they offer good progression as well, so they're not a sort of second tier? For example, we publicise to students the fact they can still get into the civil service and still progress if they don't initially get into the fast stream. But it's always the fast stream that gets the promotional airwaves. So that tends to be the thing they've heard of. Another thing, please think about the language you use. Every industry, including higher education, has its own terminology and its jargon. Please try to think about the words you use from the perspective of someone who's not an insider in your industry. Are there words or concepts you need to make sure you explain rather than assuming knowledge? And this isn't just about your recruitment processes, it carries through to once someone's in your organization. Are there kind of unwritten rules, behaviors, jargon, practices that you're so used to, you don't even realize they're there? And might they prevent the environment feeling inclusive? And is there something you can do about that? And my final suggestion for now, this is a little bit of a gold standard one, which I appreciate is really costly. In the first webinar in the series, there was mention of money up front to pay for interview costs, and that is a really valuable thing. But what about advanced salary / relocation costs? Do you know how hard it is to secure rented accommodation without money behind you? Sometimes a guarantor helps, but if no one in your family owns a property, it can be really hard for them to be accepted as a guarantor. So there's so many practical barriers. Could you loan a new starter a deposit? Could you operate a rental guarantor scheme? Could you even purchase property that can be rented by new employees? So I appreciate that's a really big one. So yeah, that's my gold standard.
No, great, thanks, Penny. But also some things in there that I think are easier to implement, as well as the sort of big questions as well. So that's good. And coming to you, Sam, what are some of the ways, I guess, in which universities are supporting these students in helping them get kind of work ready? And yeah, I guess what you're doing at NTU as well.
Yeah, so I know there's obviously a huge amount of work happening across the sector to support that career readiness, particularly of disadvantaged student groups. From an NTU point of view, we've definitely found it successful having some very targeted, specific interventions, specifically for what we call our RISE cohort of students. So that's our WP indicators for students. Examples of some of those programs are we run a first year insight program with local employers, very much to Penny's point around not knowing about those kind of opportunities. If you've not got a family that are able to give you those insights, really helps those students to build that awareness of different career opportunities and broaden horizons. We also run a second year placement programme. As many of you will know, the sandwich placement is known to be the biggest leveller of graduate outcomes for those students from social mobility backgrounds. And that programme really focuses on building kind of confidence, resilience, commercial awareness, and those kind of qualities and attributes that students from certain backgrounds lack compared to their more affluent peers. We're very conscious at NTU as well that there are a number of students, especially in the current climate, who will face barriers that don't meet our specific criteria. So there is kind of ongoing work around embedding work-life experience into the curriculum to really make sure all students are getting that career readiness in some form. And we're also looking at some, and have started implementing some very exciting new projects at NTU to support with this. So one of the ones you may have seen about on social media, because we have not been shy in shouting about it, is our professional student wardrobe. So we launched this in February this year to students, and it's open to all NTU students to provide free professional attire for career-related activities. And we've really seen the impact that that can have on students, just in terms of the confidence of feeling like they're wearing the right thing to an interview, or even for, you know, a networking event they're going to meet employers. You know, really great impact, hopefully, that we're going to see from that. And we're really looking to collaborate with employers around this as well, in terms of getting bank of resources together around what is appropriate to wear for different interviews and different sectors. So really happy to speak to anyone about that ongoing after today as well.
Great, yeah, definitely sounds like a fab idea. So thanks, Sam, for highlighting that. And then Penny, is there anything else that you'd highlight from your work at UCL or with Careers Extra that you think is working particularly well in supporting students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds?
Thanks. Yes, so as explained in my intro, my role is to run our enhanced career support. And the student groups that this covers, there's a range of them, but it includes disabled students, Black students, first in family to go to university, and a few other groups, but including lower income households. And we set it up at UCL as a sort of special extra thing, because at a place like UCL, you can feel very much in a minority as a student from these groups, and it can be quite overwhelming and daunting embarking on the graduate job hunt when you discover how much some of your peers have already benefited from that you might not even have imagined before you arrived at university, whether that's family contacts, financial security behind you, or just the know-how to navigate what needs to be done. So we've included alumni mentoring. We have priority access for Careers Extra students to advice and guidance. We have an internship scheme that we set up last year with charities and SMEs. And alongside that, students who join Careers Extra, they sign up to a circulation list. So that enables me to kind of build relationship with them and promote diversity initiatives. So anyone wants to promote any diversity initiatives that you are running, I can be contacted on careers.extra@ucl.ac.uk. And it's a way that we can reach those students that lots of people do want to reach. So it's a win-win for the students and for employers.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks, Penny. So moving across to the employers. So Phil, obviously the civil service fast stream has done a lot in terms of the attraction strategy to focus on lower socioeconomic backgrounds candidates. So yeah, if you could tell us a little bit more about that and how you sort of embedded it.
Thanks very much, Maria. Yeah, absolutely. So we've been focusing on engagement of low SEB candidates for a long time, and I mean, one of the interesting approaches we've adopted recently has been around establishing influencer-led social campaigns. So that's influencers who can bring their network to think about and talk about our program, and that's been really successful. We've been able to achieve some of the best diversity outcomes in part through that type of campaign, where those influencers have a real impact on engaging diverse groups who may not have thought about us otherwise. We've done a lot also in terms of targeted outreach, focusing on universities with high representation of lower socioeconomic students. We've developed toolkits and sort of trained many hundreds of ambassadors to engage and undertake outreach, and develop videos as well to show the diversity that we can offer. And another theme is recognizing the link between social mobility and geographic diversity. So there's population data which shows that there's a link between regional areas and lower socioeconomic background, to an extent anyway. And those opportunities are then promoted in terms of regional areas. We've also emphasized social mobility in terms of our branding more generally, engaging with networks, and our mentoring strategy as well, trying to really focus on mentoring those who are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, to give them support, and indeed our internships. And just one final thought is that we've done a lot with research agencies like Bridge Group, looking at any barriers around recruitment, and also barriers around experience on scheme. Once they get selected, how do our fast streamers experience the civil service, and unpicking how we can support that issue as well. So there's a whole bank of approaches which has had a real impact in terms of our diversity representation.
Great, yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, and also important that sort of following through in terms of what the experience actually is on the programme as well. I think it's important not to forget. And Tallulah, obviously you've implemented a lot of sort of changes in selection at Teach First that I know have kind of improved outcomes for you. I guess, yeah, just picking a couple of those key changes, what have you done, and what's the impact been for you guys?
I'd say one of our biggest game changers that's really kind of driven a lot of our diversity metric improvements has been a contextual recruitment tool. So in 2017, we introduced a contextual recruitment tool. What that is essentially is it allows employers to kind of view an applicant's academic achievements and experiences in the context that they were achieved. So it kind of gives a sense of how far they've got relative to their starting point, how the distance that people have travelled. And that's really allowed us to view potential in a whole new way, and also to kind of view high potential and really understand which of our applicants are truly exceptional. And that's a different way to the way that we looked at it before. I think it would be helpful for me to share my screen. Just bear with me, because it's one of these things that makes a lot more sense when you see it rather than just hearing about it in the abstract. So I'll just pop a slide up. Sorry, all sorts of pop-ups going on here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of my thing here so I can share my screen.
We can see your screen.
Can you see it there? Brilliant. Yeah. We'll carry on talking. So essentially what we've got is a contextual recruitment tool that looks at different metrics, and those metrics you can see there. We work really closely with the Bridge Group, who Phil has already mentioned. They're a fantastic organisation. They have a whole host of information around research around socioeconomic metrics, and they allowed us to understand which metrics are the most predictive, and which we should kind of weight higher than certain others. And that allowed us to develop a system where it's still completely anonymized. We don't have our screeners seeing the details and the specifics, but what our screeners are able to see are these RAG ratings that you can see there for 3 different domains: education, home and family, and significant disruption. And that allows them to get a sense of where there have been barriers that might have held people back from achieving what they were capable of. And it allows us to see when that academic performance may not necessarily reflect potential. The impact that this has had has been huge. So in our last cohort, 8% of our cohort, so that was almost 90 people, were passed due to contextual recruitment. And critically, those people would have been failed at the application stage, but they joined our cohort and actually have been incredibly successful, performing absolutely equivalently to our other trainees. A further 3% benefited from, we've relaxed our A-level requirements. And so even outside of our contextual recruitment tool, that's benefited others. And the kind of demographics speak for themselves. So 50% of all of our trainees were the first in their family to go to university in our last cohort. Around 23% were eligible for free school meals, and 82% attended non-fee paying schools. It's not quite 93%, but when you compare it to the kind of graduate marketplace, and the trends that you see, given that all of our applicants have to have a degree, that's a really kind of strong indicator that we are bringing people through who've come from less socially mobile backgrounds, and that we're able to benefit from their incredible talents. Something that I'm really kind of passionate about since we've introduced this tool is that it has really improved diversity across a range of different metrics. And I'm a real believer in social mobility being a great place to start, because circumstances is the explanation of why we see different groups performing differently in selection. So if you can address that, it often benefits lots of other groups, even where you're not specifically targeting them. So just a quick kind of snapshot of where we've seen that is some research that was done last year by the National Federation of Education Research. They looked at different initial teacher training routes. So these are our kind of direct competitors within the teacher training marketplace, and the gap between people from different ethnic minority backgrounds, so Asian, Black, mixed and other, compared to white candidates, and the percentage point gap between those that started our programs and the other teacher training routes. The fact that there's a disparity there, it shouldn't be the case, but what we're looking for is to narrow that, and we're really making gains there. Teach First kind of have narrowed that gap dramatically compared to other groups. So for Black applicants, we've more than halved it. And that -3 for people from mixed heritage backgrounds, that's showing that that group actually outperform white candidates. So they are more likely to be made an offer. We're the only teacher training route, and I haven't seen that across other kind of graduate employers, where it's a non-white group that are performing better through selection processes. And I think often there's lots of kind of structural inequalities in selection models. And the more you can do to try and offset those kind of social mobility barriers, the more that you can address that. Apart from contextual recruitment, the other things that we've done to try and improve our processes that have also contributed to this kind of narrowing of the gap is that we've moved from an assessment centre to a development centre. So we stripped out our competencies that were experience-based, so that we're looking just at behaviours. We've made our selection tools a lot more scenario-focused. We've got a real focus on looking for potential and not polish. We removed leadership as a competency. It was a bold move for a programme that kind of focuses on leadership development. But what we found was often that competency at the assessment stage really advantages the advantaged in terms of their previous experience, or even their comfort levels in talking about themselves in those terms. And actually, it's not reflective of leadership potential. A really key difference between an assessment centre and a development centre is we give candidates feedback on the day, not just once they complete the day in terms of how they've done, but during their assessments, mid-exercise, so that they're able to kind of understand what they're doing well, what their areas for development are, and how they can take that forward into their future exercises that they're completing later that day, so the next exercise. Within our teaching episode, where our applicants deliver a short prepared lesson, we used to just look at a kind of discrete teaching episode. We now have 2 different episodes, one which is completed to assessors enroll as pupils. The applicant will then get feedback about what they're doing well in an area that we would like them to see them improve and develop within. And they're then given the opportunity to further reflect, have some time to kind of think about how they can adapt their delivery. And then they get a chance to completely start again, rewind the clock, and re-deliver that exercise. We get a real sense of how they respond to feedback, how adaptable they are, what self-reflection they kind of do, and how much they're able to kind of take that on board and enact change. So it's fantastic for us in terms of understanding who might really respond well to training on our programme, but it also gets rid of that horrible feeling that you get when you leave an exercise and you think, I wish I'd done that, or I should have done that. We actually get an opportunity to allow people to show us what they're capable of and what they would put into practice. And then finally, we focused on borderline candidates. So a really kind of critical change that we've made is, instead of having a really fixed pass or fail criteria, where candidates haven't quite met our Teach First standard, but they've shown real potential, where we used to just reject those candidates or invite them back in a year's time or something like that, we now give them really targeted feedback, developmental feedback, and we give them the opportunity to benefit from further training and support, before completing an additional assessment. So it's essentially a conditional offer where if they take up additional training and support from us to help develop the area that we feel needs developing, they can then be reassessed. If they're able to meet our competency requirements after that training, we make them an offer and progress them to start our programs. What we found from this group, we started off with a really small pilot. We got buy-in from the organisation for STEM and maths candidates, and the results have been amazing. What we've seen is many of the people that didn't securely pass our development centre but were given this support and training are actually the ones that go on to excel in role, and we've had a couple of years where that group have outperformed people who comfortably passed the development centre, which in some ways blew our mind, but in another way it's really kind of selecting for that growth mindset people who again respond fantastically to support and training. And also some people just don't perform well in a sort of highly pressured one day situation, but if they're given that more support and time, then they can really show what they're made of. So that has made a huge difference as well. And finally, this last little graph just shows that since we've introduced contextual recruitment and the development centre, we've seen huge gains. BAME is just a really good way, because we've got consistent data from it going back a long time, of showing how that has really jumped by 5 percentage points, and then another 5, and then 10, to the point where we're now on 30% of our cohort, which makes a massive difference. So yeah, I'll pass it.
Thanks very much, Jalila. No, thanks, and thanks for sharing those stats and that information. I'm really conscious of time, so I'm sure people will have lots of questions for you guys, but I'm going to move on to our student panel so that we can hear from all of them before we launch into questions. We've got Angel, Ibrahim, Annie and Jobinji. So if you wouldn't mind just turning your cameras on and just giving us a really brief intro into who you are and where you're from. So we'll start off with Angel. You're happy with that.
Hi everyone, I'm Angel. I'm currently a part of the GoodWork program, and I'm also in the middle of my internship at Wild, so I'll just be speaking about my experiences.
Great, thanks Angel. Annie?
Hi everyone, I'm Annie. I'm a third-year history student at UCL. I'm the Vice President of the 93% Club UCL, which is a national social mobility charity for students in higher education. And I also sit on the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Committee of UCL's History Department.
Thanks, Annie. Jobinji?
Hi, my name is Jobinji, and I'm a second year studying history and politics at UCL. I'm a part of First Gen Society, which is a society for those from low socioeconomic backgrounds, and I'm also part of Careers Extra.
Thanks, Jobinji. And Ibrahim?
Hi everyone, I'm Ibrahim. I'm accountant office admin at Bootstrap Charity, which is a social enterprise / charity here in Hackney. Yeah, and I'll just be talking about my experience and how I got here today.
Great, thanks Ibrahim. And so Ibrahim and Angel, I know that you were sort of both involved with the GoodWork programme. So firstly, it'd just be good to hear a little bit more about that, kind of how you found it and what it involved. So Angel, would you mind giving us a little bit of an overview?
Yeah, so the GoodWork program, it lasted 2 weeks, and it was centered around our personal and professional development. So we had members of the GoodWork team run the sessions, but we also had industry professionals come in as well. We'd explore like different topics like self-advocacy, presentation skills, problem solving, and yeah, I think just overall, just giving us like the knowledge and insight and skills so that we feel ready and confident to enter the workforce.
Nice, great. And then Ibrahim, what was your experience like with GoodWork?
I had like a very positive experience with GoodWork. I was able to gain like a lot of valuable skills through the workshops that we did during the program. There were sessions on like how to deal with certain situations at the workplace, how to operate essentially, how to deal with burnout, and like one-on-one sessions about CV building and how to prep for the workplace.
Great. Sounds like you both got quite a lot out of it, which is great to hear. So Annie, just coming to you, obviously you're in your final year now. So how do you feel about going into the world of work and the job hunting process?
Yeah, I've definitely been slightly concerned about the prospect of graduating without having a job lined up. But I've found some avenues through uni that have really helped with this and setting you up to have a bit more confidence about it. Especially getting involved with the 93% Club. We get professionals in from different sectors. So we've had people in from the public sector, lawyers, people in consulting, and that can, speaking to them can really help sort of demystify the whole process, especially with assessment centres and the tests, which can be quite confusing if you don't really know how to approach them. Because it's a national charity, they hold a national event every year as well, which is basically the same thing but on a really big scale, and they do CV workshops, practice interviews, which are all again really helpful in just building up confidence for state educated students. So yeah, if employers reach out to the 93% Club, that is definitely something that would be really helpful.
Great, good plug there, and yeah, good that it helps you build your confidence as well and your skills. And Jobinji, so you were a bit earlier on in your job hunt career, so I guess if you could tell us about what support might help you or what you would like to see as you're currently in your first year.
Yeah, so I think there are many things that companies can do to help us. So one thing that I think that could be really helpful is opportunities before final year. So internship opportunities, not only for penultimate or final year students. And I think especially from those from low socioeconomic backgrounds, these internships can have a massive impact in, first of all, getting someone to understand their industry better and also know whether they want to go into that industry as well, because many people from low socioeconomic backgrounds are unlikely to have an idea of what the industry actually involves and whether it's worth committing to. And another thing, as Penny was saying earlier, is mentoring schemes as well. I think they can be massive help, and they don't require as much money or time required to put towards them. And I think they can be a massive help because you just need someone who works within the company who can provide a helping hand to students. And I think as someone who's been part of mentoring schemes with the SMF and Careers Extra, it's provided me with a lot of experience and virtual internships and also real life experience. That's definitely opened my eyes to the world of work. And I think mentoring schemes are an easy way for companies to do such a thing.
Yeah, great. I'm glad it's been a positive experience for you as well. And then coming back to you, Angel, as a young person sort of looking for roles in the creative sector, especially, that can be quite challenging. How do you feel kind of about the support that you've had, or what's particularly stood out in terms of helping you get a role in that sector?
Well, I feel quite optimistic since being a part of the GoodWork community. I think GoodWork having such a structured 360 approach really does help you to take a step into the right direction. So things like undertaking meaningful training, but also having access to mentors and work coaches and insights from people in the industry, it sort of does help you navigate your career, as it can be quite challenging. Yeah, as you mentioned, particularly for creative careers where you need to either have experience or have the right connections. So I think just being able to have that community and sort of using everyone as a soundboard to help you.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds supportive, and mentoring definitely coming up as a common theme is something that's definitely helpful for a lot of young people. So that's good. And then finally coming to you, Ibrahim, I know you've worked in kind of quite a few different roles. What has kind of helped you to progress and sort of get to the position that you're in now?
I've been working since I left education, since I was around 17, 18, but I never really had the opportunity to practice like professional interviews. So when I started applying for roles in like a professional sector, I'd often get flustered and I'd lose confidence because I didn't really have the opportunity to practice those skills. So I got a lot of help from GoodWork and Felicity in that aspect. I was able to practice interviews when I was sent. It helped me especially since it helps me not lose my train of thought and I'm able to talk about what I really want to talk about. So I feel like that was really helpful. Also, having a work coach, as Angel mentioned, being able to talk to someone in the workplace helps your development a lot, as oftentimes when you leave certain situations, like as it is, you often feel burnt out or it will affect you or your work. So I feel like that helped a lot. And also I feel like face-to-face interviews, even if it's over a call, that was something that really helped me. I didn't enjoy doing assessments online where they try to figure out like my motivations, things like that, as it just leaves you feeling demotivated and things like that. So yeah, face-to-face interviews, I like those.
Try and do those as much as possible. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks very much, Ibrahim. So thanks very much to all four of you. So Angel, Annie, Jobinjeet, and Ibrahim, appreciate you taking the time out. We're now going to move into Q&A for about the next 10-15 minutes, I believe. So I'm going to hand back over to Emma to pass on some of the questions. I think, should we turn cameras on for this, or what would you like?
Hello, I'm trying to start my video and it's not allowing me here, so camera is on, please. There we go. That was fantastic. Thank you, everybody. We do have a question in the Q&A. It is for a employer specifically. I would ask you, if you are posting in the Q&A, if you could just tell us who you are and where you're from, that would be great. This is for the civil service, and it is researching and identifying diverse influencers to collaborate with as a part of your attraction strategy. So, Phil, are financial resources embarked for these influencers? And if so, what is the range employers can expect to invest in these types of attraction strategies? This might be quite an in-depth answer, I feel. It seems like there's a lot of strategic points that may be raised. So if you could just give us a whistle-stop tour, because I'm starting to get questions flooding in now as well. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks very much indeed. I'm sorry, my camera's not working for some reason. Anyway, yeah, in terms of that, are financial resources earmarked, was that the question, for these influencers? Yeah, I mean, we actually providing support, financial support to the influencers, or payment anyway, through our overall marketing attraction budgets, really. I mean, that's the way that would operate. When you say range, is that the actual figure? I presume that. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It's going to be tricky for me to be specific, because we have so many different elements to the attraction budget. If that person could email me,
I was just going to say that exact point.
I will find.
Mr. or Mrs. or the potential anonymous attendee, I can put my email in the chat and we can communicate that through to Phil, and you can share some more points on the strategy. I want to jump in now on the young people on the panel today, because we have another anonymous attendee. So if you could just put where you're from, that would be great. But the question is, I have a question for the young people on the panel. What do they wish employers knew about young people like them? We'll start with Angel on that question. So it is, what do you wish that employers knew about young people like you?
I think I would like them to know that that coming sort of like being in education for a while, and not having any of that like real life work experience, it does make it challenging to sort of like either enter the workforce or even just do things like interviews, or like prepping your CV. So I think just understanding that, you know, a lot of us are coming from a place where we sort of have like zero experience, or awareness about organizations or companies. So I think just continuously like providing like enough context and support, because we can be like real assets to companies.
Yeah, thank you, Angel. And I'll just ask the same question but from a different perspective. Jobanji, did you want to jump in and let me know from your side what that looks like from a student's perspective as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I guess one thing we would like employers to know is kind of if you promote opportunities to us, specifically for us, I think we are more than happy to explore those opportunities and apply for those. And it's just about outreach. I think that's a massive thing as well. So providing us with enough time to apply for these opportunities. But also another thing that's important for us, I think, especially as students, is feedback. So I know many of us apply for many opportunities, but most of the time we don't hear back, or it will just be a simple reply, you didn't get into this internship. Sometimes that added response of why we didn't get in and an added response will be very valuable for us, and it provides us with a better chance of reapplying and getting in next time.
Yeah, thank you. I'll move on now to a question from Carla. And it's a question for the young people in the panel. How important do you think it was for you to showcase commercial awareness in interview, and how easy or hard was it for you to gain insights into how different businesses work in practice? So Carla is the founder of WealthBright, and she provides financial training in the workplace for young people. We'll go to Annie with that one, please.
Hi. On commercial awareness, I think that is something that is quite difficult. When I was applying to internships last summer, I thought that might be something that would like come up in the interviews, but I didn't really know like how to go about finding out that information. So maybe even like little bits on websites or sort of like training seminars about something like that would be very beneficial.
Okay, thank you. And Ibrahim, did you want to jump in as well there, please?
For me, I'd say you have to do like a lot of research, which sometimes isn't readily available online. So being able to talk to someone from the company beforehand, or like reaching out to people on LinkedIn, asking them how the business works or how certain things are supposed to like go along is like really helpful. I say that would help a lot.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to, again, it's anonymous, but a question for students. How can universities support you better through the assessment centre preparation and interviewing techniques? What would you also value from universities with transitioning into the workplace? So that's our two students there, if you can answer that, please. Hello?
Hi.
Thank you, Annie.
I think in terms of assessment centre and interview prep, how unis can support you is definitely just practice, because probably the most daunting thing about them is not having the confidence. And I think with like underrepresented groups and people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, that is probably a big thing that some people lack compared to their more advantaged peers. So yeah, just practice. And I can't remember the second question.
It's okay. It's what would you value from universities with transitioning into the workplace? Thanks, Annie.
Yeah, that would be good. Like maybe just something carrying on from the summer after graduation to like help you with the first steps of like starting a new job and supporting you through that. That would be good.
Great, thanks. And Jobanjit, did you want to have any? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
just
Yeah.
wanted to add. I just wanted to add another thing universities can do is I think UCL does it really great as well. Thanks to Penny, having like a very career specific. For example, we've got Careers Extra, which targets low socioeconomic students. Having a scheme like that, which will allow many university students to be a part of, and in terms of universities helping students as soon as they're entering the workplace, as Annie said, having that support network even after you graduate, I think that's very important. Someone you can come back to, especially in the careers team.
Okay, great. And I'm going to open this to, again, there's lots of student panel and young people panel questions. So apologies for those institutions and employers that are on screen, but you young people have the floor today, which is great. So this one is from the University of Sheffield, but it is very much an open question, and it is: how do cultural or family preferences and expectations actually lean into your job search? And Angel, do you want to answer that one for us first, please?
To be completely honest, it didn't really impact or affect like job search. I think, yeah, it didn't really play a role. I think the only thing that sort of did like influence my job search was probably, I would say, just looking at like jobs that other people had or job titles that I like the sound of, and then sort of trying to figure out how to achieve something similar.
Okay. And Abraham, did it affect you at all?
No, not really.
Okay.
I feel like, um, yeah, it didn't really affect me.
Okay. Okay. And then we'll move over to well, yeah, the two students as well, please. Annie?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's probably an individual thing.
Right.
But then maybe like that response like says something in itself is
Yeah.
maybe you don't have the like pressure or guidance from family or parents to like guide you into a job. So maybe saying no like is something itself.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to be there's a bit of a trend there, where there is the guidance is different for you. And Jobanjit, did you?
Yeah, I'd mainly agree with everyone. I think a small caveat. I'm from the East Midlands, and so when I am considering a job search, it's considering the price of living in London. It's vastly different.
Right.
So I guess that
Okay.
is a small consideration when applying to, because most companies are based in London, so that is a small consideration. But other than that, I agree with everyone else.
Okay, great. And now we have a question from Tom. Some great examples from Teach First about how to remove some anxiety and bias from recruitment processes to benefit students. Do other employers have examples of how they've changed the recruitment process, application, interview, or assessment in order to benefit applicants from underrepresented groups? And that's from the University of York.
If I can mention
Anyone?
if I
Sorry?
can mention, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Phil, your camera's not on, but we can absolutely hear
Sorry,
you.
my camera is not working. My
It's fine.
two quick things. One is that we did revamp our recruitment process and a couple of things that made a difference. One was we did find that psychometric tests, especially reasoning tests, could be slightly problematic. So we took them out, and it did have an impact. But the big thing maybe that did really make a difference in recruitment terms was to have a mechanism for converting interns into permanent employees on the program, and that was through recognizing performance on the internship and rating it, and if it was sufficiently satisfactory, then the individual would be accelerated through the selection process for our fast stream program, if that makes sense. So it's a conversion mechanism, and it really did make a difference to lower socioeconomic representation.
Okay, great.
Just add as well, Emma, I know like just much like kind of Tallulah touched on as well, like I know lots of employers and suppliers they work with moving to away from sort of the more traditional competency approach and testing instead for potential across the board is you know a big move that I know employers are doing, trying to feed that through all the different parts of the process. So yeah, I guess that's one thing that a lot of people are doing.
I'm not an employer, but I have a couple of suggestions based on what and we created the selection process for our internship scheme. So we were working with employers, but we created the scheme. So a lot of our small opportunities with small organizations, they sometimes want a cover letter and a CV. We went for 4 very carefully crafted questions that were about motivation and were about what the students felt they would gain as well as what they could contribute. And with the question, we gave a guideline as to what we were looking for in the answer. You know, in this question, we want you to tell us. So I think I'm a great advocate of don't go with cover letters, which can be quite disadvantageous. They're hard to score against each other compared to questions. I don't know whether I want to say the AI words, but the thing that we've been really kind of challenged over is, even with our very carefully crafted questions, are we going to be able to really identify the students who are telling us this stuff, as opposed to where there's been support from AI? So that's kind of in there as well. But I would say definitely, I know the big employers don't tend to do cover letters, but smaller ones still are. You know, really think about it, and your CVs, is that, how is that going to feed in equitably?
Just to jump in as well, again, like Penny, not an employer, but just to give a quick insight from an NTU point of view, one of the things we know really helps students that we found through our work on the employee autism scheme, but then actually helped lots of students, is simple changes like giving questions in advance to students. Again, something that doesn't cost a lot of money if a typical interview is taking place, giving students a chance to prepare and not build up that anxiety about what might potentially be asked, particularly if it's competency questions and they're worried about using examples for the wrong question, so to speak. And also providing support for students through the application process. So I know, again, Teach First, I feel like we're all talking about Teach First now, Tallulah, but I know one of the things you guys do for candidates is that every applicant who applies gets a call from one of your university recruiters, and I know that's had a huge impact on students from kind of those low socioeconomic backgrounds. So just little things like that employers I know can do quite cheaply, because I know cost is always one of the main considerations. And alongside that, just one of the easy things is keeping those essential requirements on a roll to a minimum. We know that lots of students from those low socioeconomic groups will typically rule themselves out if they don't meet all of the criteria on a job. So once again, just kind of keeping those pure essential things to a minimum and saying these would be advantageous or desirable, to really kind of widen that talent pool as much as possible.
And Sam, while I have you, there's a question here on how you've measured success of NTU initiatives that employers and unis could work together on to improve outcomes.
So yeah, measuring success is obviously always a tricky one for us, as most HE professionals on the call will know. Graduate outcomes is always our main indicator for impact, but is obviously a very lengthy process and very much depends on trying to find that very causal link between something. So we're very careful to kind of build shorter term metrics into all of our programs. So for example, the Rise in Sight program that I mentioned does both student and employer feedback, and we will take pre and post program evaluations from those students, really looking at how their confidence levels have changed kind of before and after the program. We also look at kind of their attitudes towards how prepared they feel about their career and how confident they feel about different opportunities available to them. In terms of the wardrobe, professional wardrobe I mentioned, that's a bit of a watch this space, but we're collecting lots of interesting data from students around what they're using that service for, whether it's for recruitment activities or networking opportunities, and lots of potential interesting research being kind of opened up with some of our academic colleagues at the university as well on the impact of having that appropriate clothing and what that does for well-being and confidence. So definitely watch this space, and we can share some interesting insights around the impact of that initiative soon, hopefully.
Brilliant. And it sounds like, confidence is one of the areas that has come up from the young people's perspective. So it's great to hear that there are initiatives, helping towards young people's confidence. We don't have any other questions unless anyone else would like to jump in from our panel. We have a no. Thank you all so much. Today has been really insightful. It has been recorded. It will be on the ISE. You'll be sent a recording, and it'll be on the ISE platform as well on the website. And you can share this recording with any of your colleagues if they were unable to attend today as well. A massive thank you to Maria for hosting the session today. If you have any other questions, I've put my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me at the ISE. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you to all our young people. We really appreciate your time today. It's been really insightful, and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to the young people on this panel. You've been great.
Yeah, thanks.
Many thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.